In lesson 17 of this first module, we are going to connect multiplication and division again. We're going to look at how those two things are related and how you can use one to solve the other. This is, again, not something that's entirely new to you. We've talked about multiplication and division having fact families, just like we have with addition and subtraction facts. So it's a continuation of that. We're going to continue to use some of the strategies that we've used this module with number bonds and with tape diagrams. We also look at arrays a little bit. And then we'll look at how we can use these connections when we're solving word problems. Let's go ahead and take a look at how some of this works. Again, some of this will be a review and some of this will be entirely new. So on this first slide here, I want to show you what you're going to see in the problem set and the array and the homework. You're going to have an array. It will not have X's. It will have some sort of picture. And it will have 10 rows. I'm just going to draw 4. So I have my 4x4 array here, and what you're going to see is something like this. You'll see 1 row times 4 in the row equals 4. You'll have to fill in some blanks along the way. But then next to it, you'll see a division fact, the connected division fact. So you'll see 4, because you always start with a total in division. 4 divided into a row of 4 leaves you with 1 row. And then on the next one, you'll say 2 rows times 4 in each row equals 8. And the connected division fact to that is your total of 8 divided into groups of 4, yeah, gives you 2 groups or 2 rows. And we could keep going. 3 times 4 is 12. And the connected fact there, we take this 12. That becomes our starting point in division. 12 divided into groups of 4 is 3 groups. And last but not least here, 4 times 4 is 16. That 16 then goes over to start our division sentence. 16 divided into groups of 4 gives us 4 groups. You'll notice that over here with the totals, we group counted by 4. And as we did at the beginning of the division sentences here. And then our quotients in the division sentences went 1, 2, 3, 4, showing us that there are 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows, and 4 rows. So you'll see you'll have that kind of work on both the problem set and the homework. You're also going to see in some of our practice today that you can write these facts. You can use a picture to help you write these facts. So let's pick one of them. Actually, we'll pick a new one that's not on here. 20, and we'll divide that into groups of 4. So I need a group count by 4 until I'm up to 20. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. Now I can go back and figure out how many groups I came up with. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, when you're using a number bond, the number of arms coming off the number bond, the center number, is the number of groups you have, and the number inside the little circles are the size of the groups. And again, those all have to be equal to each other. So we could have written this sentence as 20 divided into groups of 4 equaled 5 groups. But the other way we could have written it, if this was challenging for us to understand, because again, we didn't know that 5 originally, we could have written some number times 4 equals 20. These two facts are part of the same fact family. Notice none of the numbers change, they just move around. They change places, and that 5 can come right over here. We have 5 groups of 4 equals 20. And we can do that for any multiplication or division sentence. It always will work that way. So if you're missing quotient here is always going to be one of the missing factors in a multiplication sentence. So I'll give you another example, another quick example here. If I have some number times 4 equals 28, well, I could write that as 28 divided by 4 equals some number. Oops, I wrote the number in there, sorry. The number is 7. And so if that answer is 7, if that quotient is 7, then that's also the missing factor there in my multiplication sentence. And that is how those two things are connected. Let's go ahead and take a look at how this applies to some word problems. We have one here. It says a waiter puts 24 cups on 4 tables. How many cups are on each table? And so we're going to take a look at this in a couple of different ways. Some of you are going to do this. You're going to say, well, there's 4 tables. And you're going to start going like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. And you're going to find out that there's 6 cups on each table. As we've talked about in class, like this strategy works. It's going to be limited in how well it works for you as we tackle more and more complex problems. Imagine, as you get a little more advanced, if you're taking 250 and dividing it into 5 groups or something like that, you're gonna be there all day, like making marks. So it works. It helps you build sort of an understanding, but it's not a strategy that we want to use forever. We do want to learn other strategies as well. And so one of those could be, I don't know, using a tape diagram. And again, there's 4 groups, so I'm going to have 4 units here. And at the beginning, I knew that my total was 24. So the missing piece here was the size of the group. And as I just figured out, the answer was 6. And another way I could do it would be to use a number bond. I have a total of 24 things. 24 things. I'm putting them into 4 groups. And then I could group count by 4s up to 24 and see how many times I have to do that. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 6 times. So my answer to each of these is 6. And so those are some strategies that you could use, but you also need to know how to write the multiplication and division sentence that are, as we've discussed, connected to each other. So the division sentence, which I would have started with because it gives you the total and the number of groups, 24 things divided into 4 groups equals, pretend like we don't know that it's 6 for a moment. So we turn that around into some number times 4 equals 24. And because we just had these picture models to help us, we solved that 24 divided by 4 was 6. And because we found out that missing quotient, we then can take and fill in for our missing factor here. It's also 6. And that's how those two things are connected, those division and multiplication sentences. And then we can take it up even one layer of complexity here. And this is something new, something we haven't done yet this year. So I want you to pay close attention to this part because this is a problem pulled other than I changed the name. This is pulled directly from the problem set. And so we will have gone over it in class, but I want to go over it again to make sure that we really have a good understanding. And you'll see why it's different here in a minute. It says, Mr. Brunel spends $24 at the store on notebooks. He buys 4 of them. How much do 2 notebooks cost? Now, I very intentionally use the numbers 24 and 4 again because I want to be able to solve that part easily. And I want to focus here on the second part of the problem. How much do 2 notebooks cost? So up until this point in 3rd grade, we've only ever solved sort of 1-step problems, but now we're going to make it a little bit more complicated and solve a 2-step problem. We could go through the process here and say 24 divided by 4 equals some number. Now this is the total I spent, dollar total. This is the number of notebooks. And this is the price of the notebooks, which is the size of the group. So the size of the group, the amount I spent. And again, we could have written the multiplication sentence for that as well. Some number times 4 equals 24. So this would be like the amount of money I spent on each one times 4 of them got us to a total of $24. And again, we know the answer is 6 because we just solved it here a moment ago. but you would also have a picture drawing that goes with this. But again, that's not the part I want to focus on in this. I have confidence that you can solve those sort of problems. I really want to focus on the reading of directions here, because that can be a challenge, especially as we get into more complicated problems. So that part, how much do 2 notebooks cost? Now, what I see in third grade a lot is that you get to this point in the problem and you just stop. You're like, I've drawn my number bond, Mr. Bonanno. Look, see, I did it. I wrote, maybe even I wrote a sentence for you. I've got a complete answer. And I'm going to say, but you didn't read the whole problem, because it wants to know how much 2 notebooks cost, not 1. This right here is 1 notebook. This right here, I'll do a different color for this one. That's 6, is 1 notebook. We then need to say 1 notebook costs $6. So how much do 2 notebooks cost? So I need to say $6 is the size of my group times 2. That's the number of groups or number of notebooks. Equals a total, and we can solve 6 times 2 is 12. So solution here, whoops, that didn't work out. At least once a video, I hit that little button that doesn't let my pen stop. Our solution here, our product, is 12, because as our sentence would say, Mr. Bonanno spent $12 on 2 notebooks. And again, that is what the question really wants to know. You have to figure out how much 1 notebook costs as part of the process. That's step 1. Step 2 then is, since we know what 1 costs, we need to figure out what 2 costs. So this is something new. It's something we're going to spend time with. It's certainly something you're going to see more of as we move on, but I want you to be aware of it, and I want you to really focus on reading those directions. We've talked a lot about that this year, and it's really critical that you read the directions and understand what is being asked of you before you try to answer. Really focus on that. Understand, what does the problem want me to do at the end? What is it asking me to tell them? What am I supposed to be telling my teacher or my parent or whoever I'm doing this with when I'm completed with this problem? Again, we will get plenty of practice with this, but make sure you start off on a good note by really reading those problems carefully as you get going. All right, guys, good work today, and keep working hard.